Matthew 24. Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came up to him to call his attention to its buildings. "Do you see all these?" he asked. "Truly I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down." As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. "Tell us," they said, "when will this happen? And what will be the sign of your coming at the end of the age?" Jesus answered, "Watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming, 'I am the Messiah,' and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these things are the beginning of birth pains. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be for those in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath, for then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Messiah,' or 'There he is,' do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if anyone tells you, 'There he is out in the wilderness,' do not go out. Or 'Here he is in the inner rooms,' do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at the door. Truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left. 2 women will be grinding with a handmill, one will be taken and the other left. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house have been broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time? What's their food, by the way? What is the food that God is talking about? He's talking about spiritually feeding his people. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time. Now look, it's also the servants in his household. They also are serving in some capacity. It's not like little birds in a nest with their mouth open and the mother bird comes and just drops that food into their mouth. This is a faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time. So they are serving too. It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. Truly, I tell you, he will put him in charge of all of his possessions. But suppose that servant is wicked and says to himself, my master is staying away a long time. And then he begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards. Oh boy, does that sound like counterfeit Christianity or what? Tearing the meat off of God's people, indulging their own sinful desires while they place harsh burdens on everybody else, eating and drinking with drunkards. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the others also came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly, I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. "Master," he said, "you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I've gained 5 more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." The man with 2 bags of gold also came. "Master," he said, "you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness." Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. "Master," he said, "I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you." His master replied, "You wicked and lazy servant, so you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed? Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have in abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothed you?" When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They will also answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick in prison and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. There's a lot of responsibility here that's discussed in Matthew 24 through 25 and elsewhere in the Bible as well, throughout the Bible, really. And the thing that God was talking about with me earlier today that I'm now remembering was about the yeast of the Pharisees and how he warned about the yeast of the Pharisees, how he used the Pharisees as an example of what was to come. And it wasn't just this willy-nilly warning. God is intentional. He's letting us know all of these things ahead of time so that when it happens, we will know, so that we know who he is, so that we know what's happening. And one of the things that he warned us about was the yeast of the Pharisees, the things that they were going to be teaching, the ways in which they were going to sell out for glory and greed, the ways in which they were going to dilute the word, use it for themselves, the adoration and the praise and the status that they enjoyed, the arrogance and pride that was in their hearts, that was masking even their ability to see the Messiah right in front of them. Christ warned that there were going to be false messiahs, false prophets, false teachers, that many were going to come in his name, claiming to be in his cause, and that we need to be aware of it, that we need to watch for it. He also warned us about us becoming those people, about us saying, it's been too long that our master has been away, and so we start beating and mistreating the servants in his household. Now, don't mistake this for what is happening today, where we're just coddling people who are engaging in questionable or sinful behavior. We need to be holding one another accountable. So I'm not talking about not reproving those who need reproval. But as you listen to the depiction that I read to you earlier, these are those who really just don't care about the flock. They're more concerned about themselves. I watched a documentary the other day on Carl Lentz and how he'd had multiple affairs on his wife, was rubbing elbows with Hollywood's elite, running up expense accounts, super, super worldly, dressed in the world, eating and drinking with the world, diluting God's message, outright rewriting God's message. If you are living a life in which you are accepted by the elite of this world, there's a problem. If they're inviting you to their talk shows to talk about the gospel that you're sharing, there's a problem, because the world doesn't accept these things. God's gospel, his truth, the ones he uses are the small and foolish things of the world. The world doesn't want them. So it doesn't make sense for people like John MacArthur, Jimmy Evans, David Jeremiah, Carl Lentz, Joel Osteen, for any of those people to be invited on talk shows to share their message with the world. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Absolutely none to me, especially because I'm in this and I'm doing this and I know how he talks to me and I know what he has me doing and what he has me letting go of. I was very much of the world. I was very much invited into worldly circles and the elite of the world. Those people would not even want me sitting on their curb. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous that we would be thinking that someone who's receiving notoriety is from God. That's absurd. Are you reading the same Bible I'm reading that says that the witnesses are going to be killed and that the people of the earth are going to celebrate by sending gifts to each other? Are you reading that Bible? Because that's the Bible I'm reading. It makes no sense whatsoever. The other thing that I hear him that he's putting on my heart is regarding each of our responsibilities. And I've talked with you about this before, but I'm going to talk about it as many times as he puts it on my heart. That each of us has our own, as the word says, abilities, right? So he gave those bags of gold to each according to their abilities. To whom much is given, much is also required. And even with the little we're given, we are required to do well with that little that we're given. And so we can see this even in, this life and our spiritual journey here in this age, that God is going to give us, you have something right now. You have a testimony. You have something to share. If you're hearing a good word, if you have a Bible, some of the word, you have something to share. But again, I've explained this to you that it needs to happen in this order. It needs to happen in you as an individual. It needs to extend to the household over which God has given you authority to preside. And then it goes to God's church. It has to go in that order. And scripture tells us that it has to go in that order, that we have to do this in ourselves first so that we can then take care of our household, and that no one has any business managing God's church if their household is not in order, if they are not managing their own house. Our job really needs to be checking in with where we're at with God. You're not going to miss it. You're not going to miss what he's set you apart to do if you are truly in him and being attuned to him. But you can't go make up that ministry. I could not make up what I'm doing. There's no way. There's no way that I could make this up. And if I was making it up, I certainly wouldn't be stripping myself just for fun, just for kicks. I mean, really, that should be pretty good proof, right? A person who strips themselves down and gives up their career and, everything else that God has told me to give up certainly isn't something I made up. We have to remain attuned to him. And if we're not attuned to him, we're not in him yet. If we're not growing as an individual, we need to be receiving that. We need to be pursuing that. And then once we begin growing as an individual, we have something to share with others. We have something to share with our household. We have something to share with other members of the body. But I want to tell you something. It's not enough to just kind of sit still and go, oh, I'm not there yet. We have to be pursuing it. So we also cannot say, well, I was scared because I knew that these were your rules, so I went and buried your treasure. We can't be that person either, that wicked and lazy servant who is constantly saying that, well, I'm not ready. I hope I'm one of the ones. But then we never do anything about it. So I want to commend those of you, so many of you who have been reaching out to me, and I know that you're doing the work. I know that you're fasting. I know that you're returning to him. I'm hearing the fruit of that. I know that you're reading the books, and I'm seeing something come alive right now during this season, which is really exciting for me. It's exciting for me to see God moving in his people, because, he goes through these different seasons, right? Like he just got done harvesting. We just got done with this late harvest season, and his harvest seasons line up with the harvest seasons that his appointed times that he laid out in the word. So he got done with that harvest season. And there was a period in which I shared with you that I was feeling intense grief, and others were as well, because they were telling me, I'm feeling it too. Something has happened. And so I think that the grief that we were feeling, really the way that I'm understanding it, is the grief and the wrath, really, that is not my wrath. It's not mine to execute, but I was feeling that from God, of those who just, wickedly turn away. They don't want it. They make up their own doctrine and gospel. They, follow what their itching ears want to hear. They think that they can make up a covenant that suits them. And it's not a gospel that's going to save. So I've had some interactions with that. that were deeply distressing to me. But the thing that I'm seeing right now is a tenderness. I'm feeling a tenderness from him toward those who actually love him and truly are pursuing him, truly are doing the work. And the testimonies that are coming through are just incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your testimonies with me. It really encourages me and it affirms, and I can see a little bit of my story in your story and the pattern of God. And so I know that he's working through you. I absolutely recognize it. So these are the things that I'm feeling from him today. Another theme that he has been working with me on is regarding idols. And I did not realize this, but one of the things that he keeps taking me deeper and deeper into is fully resting and fully trusting him and being rid of this idol of worry. Because ever so often, I do feel a little worried about how he's going to take care of things. And he's really calling me in to trust him in a way that I've never trusted anyone or known how to trust before. So he's definitely putting a picture together for me. I'm sorry if it's not super clear. This is just what I understand right now. What I've been hearing from him today is the issue of beware of the yeast of the Pharisees, that we need to be understanding that. We need to understand our role and where we're at right now, being attuned to him and how it is that he wants to use us, and he's going to start using us first in our homes. And then this issue of idols, of trusting him and recognizing all of the different idols. I would not have identified worry as being an idol, or even this, I don't want to present a picture that I'm worried all day long about whether he's going to provide. It's not like that, but this concern comes up because it's completely out of my repertoire to not work. And I don't mean that I'm not working, because you know that I'm working. I do this every single day. I'm putting out videos for free. Every single day I'm sitting with him. I'm doing the work inside of myself. I have been working, but I'm not working according to the world. And so that is completely out of my repertoire. And it's something that it's a pretty deep root that he is digging out of me. And some of what he's been telling me is that he's the one who established everything that we're doing in this world right now. And he established it for a reason, and he can take it away just as quickly. And he tells us in the word that we're going to be our idols are going to be detestable. We're going to be throwing them out like a menstrual cloth, right? Which many of us are already experiencing. He also says that it's going to be the same for borrower as for lender. Here we go, Isaiah 24:2. It will be the same for priest as for people, for the master as for his servant, for the mistress as for her servant, for seller as for buyer, for borrower as for lender, for debtor as for creditor. God's doing a thing, and it's a new thing, and it's a thing that I don't understand, but he knows what he's doing. And so one of the things that I talked to you about in a few videos ago had to do with affirming, that he is requiring me to affirm myself. What I mean by that is that I need to remind myself of who he is, what he has done, both in the word, in my life. I need to continually remind myself of that. It needs to be at the beginning of my prayers, and I need to not be looking to him to soothe me, looking to him to comfort me continuously. This is part of my personal accountability work, and it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard when you don't know where this stuff is going to come from, and it defies all of the ways that we've been taught to live. But he's doing a thing, and I don't expect that he's necessarily doing this thing in your life, but I share it with you because he probably is going to at some point. At some point, you are going to be stripped of all of those idols, and you're going to remember the words that I say, and you're going to remember how hard it was for me and how much I talked about it and the things that I needed to do in order to continue to endure. What's the alternative? I can't go back to what I was doing. There's no way that I can go back to what I was doing And yet I don't know what's in front of me. That's the position that I'm in right now. But the bottom line is the only way left is forward. I cannot go backward. And thank God I can't go backward. Thank God he's brought me to this point, and I have to just keep reminding myself of that. You're going to be there too. Everything in the word indicates that you're going to be there too. There's not going to be a way for you to go and pick those idols back up again and dust them off. If you've got him in you, there's no way that you can go back to those deeds, those thoughts, those ways of being, the way that you used to speak, the things you used to believe in. There's no going back. Once we've been given eyes to see, once we understand, once we hear, there's no going back. But it doesn't mean we're going to know everything that's going to happen in front of us. And it's a scary thing, but it's the only way. If you've been listening to these videos for a while, you know that occasionally I put out a video like this that's like a hodgepodge of a bunch of different messages. But this is where it's at. This is what God is building right now. And probably at the end of the week, it's going to be real clear, because that's usually his pattern. He starts out talking to me about a bunch of things. And I've told you this too, as well, in your healing work, in a Soul Aligned, in Heart Known series, that the left arm seems to have nothing to do with the right leg or whatever, until you look at the body. Then you know, oh, there's a picture here. These are related. And so he starts with this picture. So sometimes it's important for us to just kind of hold that, and he puts it together. I don't think there's a single time that he hasn't. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.